Hey guys, this is Stephanie and I am Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today is day 8 and what a wonderful day it is. Today I'm going to talk about 10 books that I would like to read this year. Now, to be honest, I had a really hard time making this list. I literally had like a page full of books that I wanted to read this year, and some are books that like I own, and actually all of these are books that I don't own, which is bad. I own so many books I haven't read. I should read them. But I basically compiled a list of books that I'd like to read this year, and most of them are books that I have seen other booktubers or just people in general say were like their favorite read last year. So a lot of them are just like a single read from a single person or 2 reads from a duo channel or something like that. And these are books that I legitimately do want to read this year. I happen to not own any of them. And I think most of them are somewhat new. I'm not 100% sure about that. So I'm just going to talk about them. If I can find a picture of them, I will put it up. If I can't, then I guess I won't. The first one is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Basically, as far as I know, this is about a mother and daughter that move into this neighborhood, and they move in next to a family, I think, that has some issues. And then I want to say somewhere in there, there's a child that is like in foster care or gets adopted or something like that. And basically this mother-daughter, I can't help but think like Gilmore Girls, I'm sure it's not, are not viewing things like the rest of the neighborhood, and there's conflict. I mean, I feel like it's a terrible way to talk about a book, but that's about all I know about it. But people have been raving about it. So I'm going to give it a shot this year. I'm going to try and get it read, which I'm realizing, you know, I may have 9 months left of the year, but even with that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to read all these books. The panic is real. The next one I want to make sure I read by the end of the year is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Now this one, I actually saw it at Barnes & Noble and I was this close to buying it. I read the thing on the back and I was like, I mean, it sounds like, okay, this is going to sound terrible. It almost sounds painfully dull, but sometimes painfully dull is like super interesting. Basically, Eleanor has a pretty boring life. I think she works in like an office, and then there's a guy who is in need. I want to say he's homeless, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And she kind of ropes another guy she works with into helping this guy. And then the 3 of them become like friends and have relationship and stuff like that. And it changes her world. And I'm like, I think I would like that. And like I said, sounds painfully boring, but I'm sure it's not. And I want to read it. So I'm going to. Problem solved. The next one I have is The Guernsey Literacy and Potato Peel Pie Society by Annie Barrows and Marianne Schaefer. Now this is one that a friend of mine in real life has read, and then I mentioned it to a random person and she was like, oh, I read it with my book club and it was so great. And then I found out that Lily James is going to be in a movie, and I was like, well, that just settles it. I have to read it. I love Lily James. I love her. I wanted to put her in my fan casting of Mistborn, but she just didn't fit. Otherwise, I'd probably put her in a movie of my life and she could play me. So I decided I absolutely had to read that book. I don't really know exactly what it's about. I think it takes place in the 40s. I could be wrong. And I think it's about a group of women in the 40s who are an unlikely group to be bound together, but they're bound together. That's literally all I know. Like, it's next to nothing, but it's enough that I'm like, oh, my friend read this and I want to read this in Lily James. I'm going to read it. So, you know, if you want me to read a book, you get Lily James to be in that movie, and I'll probably read the book. The next one I want to read is Rebecca, and that is by Daphne du Maurier. Now, actually, I have seen the movie Rebecca. It is an Alfred Hitchcock movie, very well done, but it has been a very long time since I've seen that movie. So there are things that I'm like, I think I get that and Jane Eyre mixed up. I probably shouldn't. The movies, I haven't read either of the books. I read the Cliff Notes to Jane Eyre, if that counts for anything. So Happy Elephant Books did a review on it just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And I was like, oh, that sounds so great. You know what? I should just read this book. Like, why haven't I read this book? So I'm going to try and read it. I'll probably make it one of the classics I want to read. And I'm going to read it this year. Hooray. And like I said, I don't remember completely what it's about. I want to say It's a girl who becomes a governess, and that's why I get it mixed up with Jane Eyre, but I don't remember anymore, so I'm just going to read it, and then I'll know everything. The next book that I would like to read this year is Bear Town by Frederick Backman. Now, this is one that I heard about from Emma at Drinking by My Shelf. Her channel's hilarious, and I don't remember what it's about either, but I remember she talked about it, and I was like, ooh, I want to read this book, so I decided to read the book. I know, you guys, you're getting some great descriptions from me today. Now, I could look up the descriptions, but I generally like to go into books not knowing a ton, so I'm gonna just keep doing that. You're welcome. Next one is All Are Wrong Todays by Elan Masti. Now, this one I actually heard a really positive review about and a really negative review. I think somebody DNF'd it. And when she was like, I DNF'd it, I was like, actually, I thought that book kind of sounded good. And then Drinking by My Shelf said it was a great book. And I was like, okay, good, I'll read it. Now that one I remember as a girl who can travel through time, which time travel, Steph likes time travel. And she's like trying to correct the mistakes we made yesterday for today or something like that. I'm a little foggy on it, but again, it had time travel in it and I kind of want to read it, so I'm probably going to read it. I also wanted to read Sleeping Giants by Sylviane Nouvelle. Messed that one up, didn't I? This is actually a trilogy, and I want to see the third book comes out this year, and it is a girl discovers basically this big metal hand in the dirt and finds out it's like some sort of a robot hand or something. It's huge though, like it's the size of her. And I was told by actually a few people, my brother-in-law for one, that it was a pretty good sci-fi book. He said there are definitely some slow parts, but it has a good plot and has great characters. And if you're just willing to push through some slow, he said it's totally worth it. I think he's read the first two. I don't think the third one's out yet. But I kind of want to read all three this year, so I'm going to go try and do that. Next, I'm going to read Legend by David Gemmell. This is for you, Kat. I'm going to read this book this year. I don't know anything about this book either. Do you guys see where this is going? It's like a trend. I know that Kat over at Brews and Reviews loves this book, and she talks about it probably every third video they do, and it's like an inside joke that I'm just not inside of. So I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to know what's going on. It's a series, I believe, and it's kind of a high fantasy series. I think it has warrior type people, which means there's probably war. I'm getting super specific now. I hope I don't spoil you. Basically, the things Kat has said about it make it sound like it's going to be a great book, and I do trust her opinion, so I'm going to read it this year. And next we have Wicked Lovely. That is by Melissa Marr, and that also was one that Kat and Han told me to read. I don't know what Wicked Lovely is about, but they said it's great. It's definitely like a YA kind of, I think it's like a supernatural / maybe love story, and that makes me hesitant, but they're like, no, you'd love it. And I'm like, I'm going to trust you guys here because everything in me says this book is not going to be for me, but I'm going to read it. And the last one I'm going to read is Magician's Guild by Trudy Canavan, and this is also a Brews and Reviews recommendation. They said it was one of the best books they read last year, and they were talking about it, and they said it wasn't like Harry Potter, but it is like magical and wizards magicians, and they just said it was good. And I was like, okay, again, I don't know, but I'm gonna read it. So that is it. Those are 10 books that I'm planning to read this year, and I'm probably gonna have to get them from my library or buy them on Audible or something like that because I don't own any of them. I probably should have picked 10 books I did own, saying I own so many books, but to be honest, these are like the ones that I'm like, yep, it's gonna happen. So go ahead and tell me down below, like 1 or 2 or 3 if you want to, books that you want to read by the end of this year. Also, if you've read any of these, feel free to rate them for me. Let me know how they are. Don't give too much away because y'all know I just don't like to know that much about books before I read them. Also, go ahead and check out my co-star channels down below. We have Brews and Reviews, Brooke Clark, Christina's Journey, Danny Buxton, and The Story with Serenity Dawn. They are also doing all of these tags all month long. And in case you want to do these tags, I will also link all the prompts down below, and then you too can do these tags. If you do, let me know. I totally want to see them. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will be here when you guys come to see me tomorrow. Goodbye.